The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemy. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall continue to follow me all the days of this protracted experience of death. And I will dwell in the house of the most super intelligent power, source, and force of love and creation forever. What's happening? Benton here, leaving the truck stop. About to negotiate a series of roundabouts. One of my favorite things to do. And as soon as it seems like once the phenomenon of two or more interconnecting roundabouts occurs, you pretty much have to be local and familiar with the setup to even know which lane to be in. Because once you enter the roundabout, pretty much what you're in, whatever lane you're in, you can go where you can go, and if you're not able to go to where you need to go to, what then? I don't know, especially in an 18-wheeler. But trying to decode these signs as a person who's seeing this for the first time or hasn't seen it recently, it's effectively impossible to decode which lane goes where, which road goes to what. But I've always found that fascinating. I was spending time when I was in Conway, Arkansas. I went to a particular side of town and hadn't been to Conway for several years, or at least that side of town. And as soon as I saw that there was the interconnecting roundabouts, I just never went to that side of town again. Well, this will be my last trip over this way. I'm good on all this. Maybe that's the point. And then the waking dream, surrealistic unreality deja vu all over again. Open the curtains on the truck here, and first thing I see is, where everybody's backed in at an angle. And of course, I'm looking at the ass end of a trailer sticking way out into the row. Of course I am. And then, of course, to my left is a bobtail with no trailer. And truck stops are tricky because I forget I parked next to there was a light pole in between the ass end of the two spaces where the trucks are supposed to back in, ass to ass. And that light pole fucks everything up. But somebody decided, well, they can, for some reason, they decided they could go in forward. I guess, I don't know how that resolved. It actually makes it worse, the reduced space, because nobody really pulls in forward to these angled spots. You see it here and there, but it's even more rare than the 90-degree, just regular old truck stop spaces. And then, so just immediately to be and realizing that as much as I get to the truck stop early and I choose my spot based on not getting back blocked in, I totally forgot that it's pretty much you can't park directly next to a light pole, even if it's seemingly not in the way. We need the uniformity. But then again, the waking dream aspect of, oh, well, look, to my left is a bobtail with no trailer. That truck that's pulled in forward could easily fit there. And then, we've got the full size rig to my right with its ass. And I was still able to get around. But now I'll say this, if my tandems weren't all the way to the front, it would have been tricky. And if one truck on the other side was pulled up too far, now you're getting into, can I even get out of my space? I'm ready to leave. And in the past, this is the sort of thing that I would allow to annoy me greatly and cause me anger and frustration. And, the Royal We doesn't really deal on those levels so much anymore. I guess they've salted the fuck out of the roads. It's 38 degrees on the dashboard. And drove through a little bit of winter weather yesterday, nothing too crazy. Up here in the Northeast. Oh, and my earbuds, by the time I figured out that the right earbud is not connecting or powering on, I don't have time to troubleshoot that. And there's no button on the case. Some earbuds have buttons on the case to just sort of completely reset the connection. But, don't know. I guess, and one set I think I've just lost. I had my previous, I had my main set and my backup set. And it's a different. I still have them, but I think when I moved out of the truck, I lost, the different earbud brand. I think I just lost them. I don't know where they are. So worst case scenario, we'll just go back a generation to the previous earbuds. It's funny how that works, though. What am I actually going to bother to go to start downloading PDF, help files and all of this, or watching YouTube videos on? And I understand broadly how to deal with this type of issue, but some of these different brands are quirky, and then if you get into, well, it has its own app, all of these things. At this point, I'd rather just buy some new ones. Fuck me money. Which is probably what will happen. Because that's the thing, is 2 hours of troubleshooting later, it's like, well, I guess they're just fucked. Oh, okay. Well, it's 2 hours you'll never get back, right? As if that were the goal. Humans certainly don't live as if time was something to be cherished and maximized. So I'm not buying the hype. Time is cheap. They say talk is cheap, and this idea that time is money and all of this. Time is mundane. Time is, it's not some valuable commodity. Now, I suppose it depends upon, what is the being attempting to accomplish? What levels of folly and foolishness, is the being involved with, especially with respect to business transacting. This idea that time is some precious, valuable resource. Bullshit. No, it is not. And here's how you know it's not. I don't know what an ounce of gold costs, but if most people will treat an ounce of gold as if it has a relatively high value, look at what people do with their time and tell me again how valuable and critical it is. And I don't mean the exceptions. I don't mean the people who are frenetically serving their master Satan. Right? And again, I'm not pushing a concept of Satan. People are free to accept or reject these concepts however they choose. Hang on, let's see where we at. Make sure we're going the right way. Okay, we're good. Um, it's a handy way to refer to antithesis. Um, that which makes an enemy of what I am. Antithesis. It's like we got about 3.5 hours, 200 miles to this delivery. We'll be there early, of course, about an hour early. And so, what happens if the being actually questions everything? And, in conjunction with the concept of, quote, question everything, how about come to one's own conclusions? If that conclusion happens to match the status quo or the commonly accepted so-called conventional wisdom, then fine. And then even that's only for the moment, because is it question everything statically? And of course, there's always exceptions to everything. It's not actually going to be a questioning of literally everything. But if that's the ethos, well, wouldn't that not be dynamic, just like many phenomena? And that's going to grow and change and evolve over time. And that's one of my major criticisms of the MAGA or the traditional family values crowd is they very much are attracted to a static to static forms and a crystallization of, okay, this is our belief system, this is what we know, we're sticking to it, we're not open to reconsideration. That's death, folks. That is death. That's a form of death. That's a loving of death. And so, in order to acknowledge and properly deal with the blessing of what I am, not in a guilt-ridden or, parable of the talents from the Bible, not in a fear-inducing way. And I just had many, many deep thoughts, further revelations brought to Benton's consciousness. The limited being is unable to convey that at the moment, and that's what some of this topic switching or beginning a tangent only to abandon it. And again, I've began to think of these more as my own brainstorming sessions, but that's some of it is I'm experiencing certain revelations or certain epiphanies. Had at least one pretty strong epiphany yesterday, and more and more I'm way less inclined to even bother to try to capture it. So in the past I would be sort of fearful and clingy and like wanting to write it down and capture it and study it and covet it, right? Possess the epiphany. And now, further development of the yin and the yang, the passive or accepting form. Like, there's an epiphany. It's interesting. Seems like it could be powerful or useful. I felt like I have it in the moment. Yes, whatever. I don't even really remember what it was yesterday. I knew it was a key point was, properly perhaps understood for the first time, at least consciously. Well, if that's epiphanies burbling up from the subconscious, I mean, it's there. No need to grasp it or be fearful or, hoard the epiphany. The same thing here. Something just occurred. even the desire to grasp it is beginning to wane. That death, the death of that desire to grasp. What's up, JT? But yeah, that's death. The desire is dead. Even the desire to grasp and hang on to, intellectual. It seems very important to know knowledge is power and all of these things. Well, why is that idea promoted so strongly if that's in fact the case? And a show I've never bothered to watch and have no interest in watching Game of Thrones. Apparently, one of the characters pointed out power is power, not information or knowledge. Fair enough. It's interesting, not as a being, a human, not particularly seeking of power necessarily, Mr. Benton. Although, yeah, in certain ways, sure. Um, Again, what I am is power. And that's not a fake it till you make it, Stuart Smalley affirmation. That's, again, question everything. Um, John 14:26, the Comforter, which is the Holy Ghost, teaching all things and bringing unto remembrance. And to trust and accept. And, ultimately, this highlights the churches because the church, fulfills that function in some ways so that individuals don't have to develop that ability to trust within themselves. Because the human side, the dead flesh, desirous of security, safety, and certain other states of being. I wish my intestines can't decide if it's bathroom time or not. If it's bathroom time, that's fine, and if it's not bathroom time, that's fine. It's just you can't quite figure out which one it's going to go with. So that's all right. Go with your gut, they say. Who the fuck are they, right? Exactly. And then now, and I'll transition off of that because I am getting lost in my own sauce a bit. Although not really. It's just sometimes that's to come up for air. And we'll transition off of ideas onto people and personalities for a moment. And I heard another channel, Modern Men Lost Again, Landry, saying, discussing panelverse dynamics. And a common criticism apparently is folks who are seemingly more interested in talking about people instead of ideas. And, Landry was addressing that, but he seemed to be treating it as an either or. Well, in my experience, it's to do both, interchangeably and to go from one to the other back and forth as sort of, especially when you're talking about conducting a live stream with, let's say 60 concurrent viewers over an extended period, a sustained period of time. It's up to the content creator to work in enough discussion of ideas to, soothe or sate folks like myself who are a little more inclined to the ideas. But if it's only ideas, I myself will be less interested because I am an enjoyer. Well, I can't say I am. Certainly the dead flesh. Everybody responds to drum. I think that's the best way to put it. It's not about, oh, they like it. Well, they respond to it with their actions and their attention. So what else do you need to know? They pretty much all humans respond to it. Now, some pretend to be above it and don't process it when it's directed at them, but yeah, almost everybody responds to it in various ways. And so same here, now we're seeing as the whatever's going on with war, and I've got my own opinions about what that's about. It without, I'm not following the narratives. I pay almost no attention to geopolitics these days. But even my father hasn't emailed me freaking out about the war, the so-called war. That's his favorite TV show is geopolitics. So good on him. Or maybe he just learned that I won't give him what he wants as far as responding in certain types of ways. Uh, at one point, I just emailed him back and said, geopolitics is a red herring dead end. Another time I told him, well, I understand that's your favorite TV show. It's like mine's Mad Men, or it was at the time. So, I would like to be able to talk to you about Mad Men, but you don't watch it, so we can't talk about it. So I don't watch geopolitics anymore. So I'm not really going to be able to have this convo with you, sir. I understand you would prefer that I did, but can't help you. It's not my cup of tea here. The Clintons testifying before Congress about Epstein. And I think what we're starting to see now is an idea, not what some of the less asleep portions of sheeple, and especially the millennials and Gen Z, is, there is such a thing as a very highly skilled politician. Right? Look at the Clintons. And first you got, I see some YouTube comments and people are saying, well, wow, the Congress people were way harder on Hillary than they were Bill. And it's like, I think I commented, like, yeah, Bill Clinton's one of the most likable politicians of all time, and Hillary's one of the most unlikable people of all time. Like, it's just human so-called nature. This is just natural, right? There's what's referred to as natural, which what's referred to as natural is dead. Imagine that. And then some would say, what the fuck are you talking about? Well, whether or not and I don't mean this as a pejorative or an insult, in my lesser evolved form, I could have heard somebody operating at higher levels say something like that. And even if I was willing to go with their premise, I wouldn't have been able to see or understand what they were saying yet. And some of this is seeds for the future. And maybe that's a shortcut. Maybe somebody's on their own development and then they they have an epiphany and remember, oh yeah, I remember Benton for a time was going on and on about how nature is dead and these various things. And then that's sort of a shortcut in their own progress, potentially. Then sometimes it's like a framework or a naming convention for something that's, experienced perhaps for the first time. And, I've found it helpful to have read the work of many other, metaphysicians. I don't know, is it the proper term? A little foggy out here. Good thing I left early, right? I thought I would arrive early enough to prepare my fruit, meaning usually I get all the fruit ready for consumption before I roll out. I skipped that this morning. I figured, well, it's early and it was only 3 hours and 45 minutes to the receivers. Figured I'd get there early enough to do it there, but perhaps not. All right, buddy, you can hammer down and pass me, or you can go 55. You can't follow me to the promised land, Mr. Truck Driver. You're going to have to do one or the other. We're not following old Benton. We're not going to let old Benton do our driving. And he's day cab. He's got this road memorized, and he still wants to tuck in behind me. How about you lead the way there, Bubba? You know every inch of this road. I come up here regularly, but I don't, especially in the dark, I don't know where the fuck I'm at. Not specifically. And see, this is what I mean by the adversarial nature of humanity. It's built into us to be adversarial. See, he could be assisting me, and his first thought was, what can I take from this person? What can I extract from this person to lighten my own burden? Versus, well, that's a long haul driver, and he's just based on his speed and the way he's driving, I can tell he's a fish out of water. And I've got the road memorized since I'm a local day cab, so I'll just pass him real quick, and then if he wants to follow me, that's fine. Of course, I prefer not to. That's just how I am. But it's built into humanity, dead humanity. See, that's dead. What I am doesn't do that. What I am doesn't seek energy sources to drain. That's vampiric. What I am is the thing that is sought to be drained. See, the power source, the originator, the origin. This world's origin, this world traces its origins to the phenomenon of what I am. The inverse is the idea that Benton traces his origins to this world. Nope, that's inverted. And so the so-called truth community loves to rush around talking about inversions and this and that and the nature of this place. Well, how about figuring out what the fuck I am? And that interplay between what I am and what this place is. See, what about that? And I know this place the nature of this place much better based on knowing myself or what I am. Oh yeah, gigantic potholes. But see see the day cab, he doesn't crash through the gigantic potholes because he already knows they're there. He steers around them every day. So I'm the one that crashes into them. So if I was matching his speed following him, I would have avoided potholes also potentially. But, and we got another one. We got another. I guess we're just gonna go 55. I guess 60 ain't in the cards. Now is this another day cab? 60, which is the appropriate speed for the conditions and the visibility, that just ain't the cards. Another day cab, got the road memorized, pulling doubles. He wants to go 65, but he'll settle for 60 if he can vampirically extract off of me. See, that's your dead flesh human nature, and boy, it's glorious and wondrous from the perspective of antithesis, who wouldn't know glory and wonder if it slapped antithesis in the face. It only knows the lack of glory, the lack of wonder. See? That's its nature. So, well, Bitten will just go 55. Who cares? What's the difference? But remember, in a vacuum, all the local drivers go 65, but if Benton presents an option to tailgate Benton at 60, they go 60. Isn't that interesting? Fascinating. So I learn a lot about them by observation, and reasoning, deductive reasoning. So their vampirism actually hinders my efforts. And of course, I understand the what's the big deal crowd. That's the NPC normies rushing in to normalize everything that is not incongruous or incongruous. So when you hear Benton making intelligent points, and then you hear the what's the big deal crowd, that's the NPC normie normalizers. That's the defense of this indefensible system of things. That's what that is. There's no glory in that. That's dead. So a further late in the day epiphany around the nature of this truck driving, living in a truck, and certain amounts of money, and now back to work. So um, only 2 days of pay on this check, but of course that's not a problem. Fuck me, money. Not rich, of course. I do want to talk about money also. And I realized I began a topic earlier and didn't quite begin down that path. And that's another thing about anybody that would listen to this. Sometimes, and I understand there can be a frustration there. Well, some of the time I will begin a topic only to immediately abandon it and then perhaps revisit it, perhaps not. That's what brainstorming is. And there's a there's a creativity in that, versus the imposition of form, which can be fine and certainly can be useful to impose form, but this ain't that. See if we can go 60 again. Maybe. Maybe. I keep forgetting to put the iodine on my broken tooth. It's hurting a little bit. It's crazy, but usually I do that at night. More and more, I seem to forget. I brush my teeth, and then for whatever reason, I don't put the iodine on the tooth. It definitely keeps it from hurting the next day. And I've been working with this idea of, Christ in the Bible after baptism did not work a job, did not accrue tax liability, and did not handle money. And the level up within the last year of the unlocking of the achievement of true knowledge of self / self realization. And then realizing at a certain point, well, that there's still more level ups beyond. That's something like the final level up. I think some folks, if they get into sort of not new agey, but if they get into certain ideas of metaphysics and spiritual advancement and practices and all this, you hear about a concept of self-realization, then I think it's easy to sort of just assume that would kind of be like total wisdom and all of this. No, not really. Not in my experience. But, and again, Benton has already lived his so-called life. I've died. Benton's already died his so-called death. I mean, and really, that's what this is. Again, in inverted world, of course, an extracted process of death or protracted experience of death is referred to as life, right? While at the same time, the realm itself mocks and ridicules. Oh, look, life breakfast cereal. Mikey likes it. That whole the virality around that TV commercial when I was a child, a lad, a youth, a youth. 61,610 miles, 36 degrees Fahrenheit, 55 miles an hour. 56. So yesterday, thinking more and more about the next level up, but again, in the concept of the yang and the yin, especially Americans and Westerners are taught and indoctrinated that anything achievable is only achievable through means of assertion, aggression, and dominance, the yang of the yin and the yang, the masculine, active form. And so much of my own practices have been tied up in, increasing the ability to accept and trust and deal with the yin. But in order to access even greater levels of effectiveness, not because, you should or could be more so-called sensitive. No, nothing like that. To achieve a goal or goals for purposes of effectiveness in the so-called real world. And so now the context is, well, here's a being known as Benton, and this collection of experiences, a personality, a psyche, and all of these things. And what is the purpose of so-called life, and what is life, and all of these things. But then, is the being here to accomplish certain things? On and on, and on and on and on and on and on. And of course, the realm itself promotes certain ideas for its own purposes, not to cater to or facilitate humanity, but which I think many just assume that, well, of course these systems exist to facilitate and support, living, breathing, wondrous, natural humanity. It's like, are you crazy? What? Huh? How do you get to there? I don't see that. I mean, I understand that that's part of the programming, and people assume that, but I don't see any evidence for that point of view. What supports that point of view? And so increasingly, I'm beginning to view the few so-called big brains of the internet, but then the so-called truth community, and certain people that I in the past had respect for their intellect, and it's waning. It's that respect has been lessened, as my own understanding and comprehension, and some of that is just straight up courageous, big ball, question everything, come what may. I will deal with whatever fallout occurs, whether it's disorientation or, makes it harder to fit into society. Good. Oh, disoriented? Good. Right. Struggle and strife? Good. What the fuck else am I going to experience or do? Oh, truck driving and the inherent perils? Good. Because the day will come and this rig will be parked. What it won't be is rolled over on the motherfucking freeway. We barely had any ice or snow, and I saw 2 different rigs manage to roll the fuck over. One of them just happened. I thought about stopping, but it was like, for what? Oh, here's heroic Benton that, there was one fella on the scene, and you could tell he didn't know what to fucking do. Well, buddy, we got to go open that goddamn door and see if whoever's in there needs to be helped. So we might need to bust that there window, pal. What do you got in that truck that can bust a window? You got one of them there sharp, pointy things that's, so you can break a window, underwater or whatever. You got one of them things? Because they're making this glass nowadays. It might take a minute to brute force that motherfucker. I got a hammer. I don't know if that's going to do it. But standing there and calling out, "Are you okay?" probably ain't going to fucking do anything. He's either okay or he's not. And if he's okay, you calling out, "Are you okay?" How's that going to help him or her? And if he's not okay, again, you know, thanks for pulling your pickup truck over, sir, to engage in completely ineffective actions. So it's probably, if the trucker was wearing his seatbelt, he's probably completely okay. He's probably just so obese and physically unfit that because the thing's on its side, he can't physically climb out of that motherfucker. That's probably where we're at. Probably going to have to wait. If he's 300 plus pounds, we're going to have to wait for the goddamn heavy wrecker anyway. First, they'll winch his ass out of the cab, and then they'll winch the fucking rig over onto its wheels. What am I going to do? But I'm willing to. But I need to be able to see a path to helping. Because otherwise, why potentially delay what I got going on to do things that are not going to help in the first place? It's illogical, man. Oh, well, this or that or the third. Well, that's all irrational emotions and saving a face. Oh, you wouldn't want anybody to see you not helping. Oh, okay, so pull over and don't help. But if somebody drives by, you can pretend, at least, oh, we see the intention to help is there. But what good is that if it's not actually helping? Let's say that guy passes away, but could have been saved. Do you think he gives a flying fuck that you pulled over and you appeared to be assisting for your own purposes? And I don't mean you, the listener. My apologies. But a vampiric extraction of resources from other humans that's the default state of humanity. That's what it performs. It encounters other humans and immediately seeks to extract whatever can be extracted. Adversarial, vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions. That's where you are, whatever in the fuck you even is. That's undebatably what this place functions as. It doesn't mean that's all it functions as. It functions as that. Why have I never heard it described in those terms? Because, like it or not, Benton's one of the baddest motherfuckers on display in 2026 in this motherfucker. It's just what it is. Take it how you want to take it. And I realized yesterday I missed the last loves to fuel at. Although I really didn't, because it's getting to where, unless it's completely necessary, I will not pull in there when it's the busy time of day. It's just so unappealing and crowded. Let's see, what have we driven? By the time I get to this delivery, it'll be 700, little over 700 miles total. I can probably drive another 700, but that'd be pushing. I mean, not that I'd be running out. Then that would put me into the zone of, having to think about, am I going to run out of fuel? So certainly enough to get us back to a love somewhere. let's just call it 500. I might idle a little bit, especially I don't know how cold it's going to be. And so context is very important, proper, because how quickly this realm and the defenders of the indefensible realm will drag the being off into, the deep waters of unclear context. So the one of the major contexts for Benton is, well, my main's life's purpose that's been achieved. That's already happened. Again, I'm so far afield, I don't even like to call it life, right? I want to put the air quote. I have to stop and put the air quotes around it. Life, right? Protracted experience of death. If I'm willing to entertain notions of, there's a purpose to that or a meaning, and I would say there is a meaning or meanings, um, but the main mission that's done. So now we're on to the side missions, and if you think about the simulation aspects of the realm, or more and more people are like, hey, this is just basically a video game, and it's not that, but there's elements of that certainly. And the financial aspects, many people play that like a game. Um, hang on, let me chug some water. Maybe. Where is the water? There it is. And I've also recognized along the way that whatever I am strongly attracted to at the level of development, again, metaphysically perhaps, not in a self improvement type of way. I'd say that's all been done for the most part. Mission accomplished there. But or uh, and also this idea of helping others, that's promoted so strongly by the realm. I'm beginning to see that's a dead end. That's a non-starter. This idea of being of use or helpful to others. Now the nature of what I am certainly is that, and it's desires to be helpful and is helpful, right? When it what I am, when the spirit of what I am manifests and occupies, and that's not really even the proper terminology, but expands into, even this unreal environment, um, this unreal engine, since we're talking video games and simulation to some extent. Y'all, any of you are familiar with that terminology, unreal engine? So, a lot of what I'm discussing, it's there. Once that path or force is uncovered and experienced, and then the dead flesh is moved to the side, to allow as much as possible the full free expression of what I am as a phenomenon. That's the removal of anxiety, performance anxiety. That's the removal of doubt. That's the removal of guilt, fear, shame, and all of these things. And the perfection of what that is left to perform or not perform, as the case may be. So eventually, the performing the tasks of a truck driver Well, I'm beginning to have experiences now to where whatever's going on within me based on my own processes and experiencing within this context of a protracted experience of death, that's even while operating as a truck driver, that's the practices are coming more and more to the fore. That makes sense. And I'm beginning to foresee a day in which I will most likely lose the ability to perform this job because the frequency and the degree at which it's my own enmeshment within the context of what I am. Again, my cup runneth over, worshiper and object of worship contained within the same space, the continuous renewing of the spirit, right? And so, where that lines up with the tasks and responsibilities of the truck driver, then that happens. But at times, it's going to be back burner, right? And then eventually, does the mere performance to continue to perform as a truck driver may become so by comparison unimportant that it's could make it difficult or impossible to actually pick up and deliver the loads on time. Or to just now it's like, hey, this guy was never late. Now he's late some percentage of the time, and just incrementally from the perspective of the company, a less and less and less stellar job performance, because my job performance is stellar. I mean, it just is. Of course, it is. So a lot of new jobs, I go through this thing of they figure out how much of a strange, weird, bizarre person I am, and the company sort of pretends not to be put off by it. While meanwhile they are put off by it. But then a couple of months later, it's like, oh, this is a bad motherfucker right here. Yeah, he can't hardly back up, but other than that, it's a bad motherfucker. And meanwhile, I'm still performing above my own backing abilities much of the time, actually. So, whatever. And some of that is just the management where I don't get nervous. I don't let people rush me. I don't crash into shit. But again, so in the recent past or on past jobs, I would be willing to get to some customer and understand that the moment I start backing up and setting my brakes and jumping out to take a look, that it visually appears so different than what the bystanders are used to seeing, that they start to feel disoriented, they feel uncomfortable, and they don't know how to resolve their own internal emotional state. And so what they want to do is they want to then intervene on my behalf, which in the past has driven me fucking crazy. Now, when you get into the concept of a sage, a person who performs as a sage, the sage just pulls up and recognizes, well, if I start performing all of these maneuvers, all of these people in the environment are going to start freaking the fuck out. So I'm just going to sit here and not do anything. Or I might sleep, or I'm just going to kind of do things like everybody else does them. But then at a certain point, I can't continue backing up, and I can't see where my trailer is, and I might crash into the building. So now it's like, what do I do now? I guess I go park on the curb and we call the company, give them an earful about why the fuck am I even expected to do all this? Because there is a version of if there's enough space, just pull up, kind of sneak in, pull up, get it all done in 10 minutes max. And there's really, by the time the people that work there can figure out, oh, we need to go spiritually attack that trucker, the demons inside of the staff, by the time they figure out to go demonically attack old Benton, it's too late. Now I'm too deep into the thing. Better. Went ahead and turned the live chat off. And so that's where we're at with the live chat. Is I'm going to start every stream with the chat on, and then the moment I look down and see a comment that I don't want to see, I'm just turning the chat off. That's what I'm going to do. And we're already down to one viewing, right? So what's the difference anyway? I think it peaked at 3. Oh, we might have hit 5. And I see the little notification that says new chat on StreamYard, and I click over and I read the last comment. It's like, yeah, I'm not gonna. Why would I let this? Why would I permit someone to come here and comment? And remember, there's no version of muting or timing out or banning these people, because whoever typed that has 100 alter egos or sock accounts and will be back within 30 seconds. And see, so that it's already, the pattern has exists to where, again, if you want to call it a rotten fish fallacy, shout out to the content creator who, not the first time I heard that terminology, but certainly introduced it in the context of the so-called truth community. So, see, that person with one comment reveals their entire, way of operating. They expect now, and it's also triggered the boomer. Let's trigger the boomer and elicit a certain reaction. And this is partially that, but not entirely. But then it's also, maybe the boomer actually knows how to click the buttons and ban or time out. And now it's the glee of maybe catching one of these boomers when they figure out for the first time, oh, the banning does nothing, because they immediately come back under other names. Well, this boomer just turns the motherfucking chat off. What now, bitch? See, that's fuck me money. See, that's fuck me money, not fuck you money. Fuck me money. You like it, I love it. As a tickle, what they say, something about a pig and shit. Never wrestle a pig. You both get muddy, and the pig likes it. And I won't even bother to logically, and I won't even bother to slice and dice the actual comment. That's far too easy for a person such as myself. And slice and dice that one, no problem. But that same person that typed that would absolutely be the type under a certain circumstance to say never judge a book by its cover. So I'll say, well, sir, I'll use your own MO against you and say, what you're accusing me of down there, do I sound like that description? Yeah, absolutely. That's the cover of the book, sir. Yeah, that's definitely what I sound like. Absolutely. Could not agree more. You're right. In fact, that's a description that I use. I actually self-apply that specific label, and sometimes in public. Step forward. Now, here's an exit. Are they actually taking the exit? No, we're about to find out. Oh, I love it. This is starting to happen a lot. Where see, I have this move now. I have a move where when somebody starts following me in the right lane, if it's not a lot of traffic, I jump into the left lane. And it's starting to happen where almost half the time the car that's following me immediately moves into the fast lane behind me. And now, even though they just took the exit, when I moved from the right lane to the left lane and then looked in my mirror, they had moved to the right to the left lane. Meanwhile, they took the exit that was less than a mile away. But when I put my blinker on and moved from the right lane to the left lane, they also moved to the left lane. So, can you account for that? I don't think you can. I don't think most of you have even detected that that's happening because that's brand new. These people almost never used to do that. I'm starting to see that at least 25% of the time now. If we're on a wide open road and there's some cars just decided to follow me, and I'm like, well, fuck this. I'm going to force their hand, and then I go into the fast lane because I'm not blocking anybody. At least 25% of the time, they just immediately go into the fast lane behind me. And that one did it even though they were less than a mile from their exit, which is the entire defense for, well, they're following you because they don't want to risk trying to pass you and missing their exit. Okay, isn't that the same thing that would presumably prevent them from moving into the fast lane? Would be a fear of missing. So that proves they don't have a fear of missing their exit. They're actually preferring to follow a big rig. And this specific big rig, not any big rig, Benton's big rig, or the company's big rig. Most of the other big rigs, nobody tries to follow. And yesterday it was hour after hour of people of getting caught up, of faster traffic catching me and then trying to follow me. And I had to go. Eventually, I was going in so slow that I wasn't going to be able to make it to the truck stop in the allotted time. So it forced me to speed back up. That's how slow I had to go, or 75% of every vehicle that caught up to me on a wide open road attempted to follow. So can you explain that without saying what's the big deal? Or, oh, they're afraid they're going to miss their exit? No, they're not. They're not in fear of missing their exit. Nope. No, they're not. And remember, if you're my age or older, I'm 50. But I grew up in a time warp in Southeast Arkansas. So, again, I was born in 75, but in some ways it was 1955 still. And, I was socialized to very different standards than what's going on today. And, so that indoctrination is just not, it's not built for what this world now is. It's just not. It's not compatible. So, I have to remind myself that, I can be in public, whether it's a truck stop or a Walmart, and some of these beings that I'm interacting with, well, that's the same people who are on the roads driving in these, otherwise inexplicable ways. And in a, interpersonal interaction, they will gaslight and behave towards me as if I'm somehow doing something inappropriate or wrong when they can't, when they lack the ability to conduct their own affairs intelligently. But that's who's going to critique and pass judgment in a way on my behaviors. If I allow it, I simply won't internalize. I just refuse to internalize those. I know what these people are. Why, and that would be a spiritual weapon that would form and potentially prosper in that context. That's not that's not appropriate. That, sir, would be uncivilized. Yeah, I guess we're going to probably get below freezing. It's 34 degrees. Again, glad we left early. Hey, there's one of your rare Walmart. Actually, not rare. I shouldn't say that. They're around. That's a version of don't feed the trolls too. It's like, oh, okay, here comes the rotten fish. All right, well, no more chat. How about that? No meat on that bone, buddy. Wrong saloon, partner. Then, also imagine this. Imagine being that person, and let's just maybe they're coming across my channel for the first time, and they get their job. And look, it's fine if that's how they get their jollies. Well, I don't give a fuck. I'm not one of these people that's like, oh, can you believe there's people that this is how they get their kicks and they do this and they do that. Yeah, it's called the internet. I've been here every day since 1994. I've connected to the internet at least 75% of every single day since 1994, early 1990. I'm not exaggerating. That's a low estimate. They say you want a cookie. Well, the point I'm making is I'm here every day for 30 motherfucking years now. So, I mean, I understand I come across and sound and, maybe look like these other people who don't understand the internet. I understand it in a way that most people never will understand what the internet is. I understand it in a way in which many folks just can never have a frame of reference for it, which is, that's fine. But, I get a chuckle out of thinking about, imagine the person who just assumes that, especially with a Southern accent and kind of country sounding, let's go trigger the boomer. Well, this boomer's been here every day since 94, so I don't know what to tell you. They say, what do you mean? YouTube wasn't here 30? No, the internet, motherfucker. Not YouTube. But I probably, if you were also 50, I guarantee you I knew about YouTube before you did. I guarantee you I knew about Facebook before you did. I guarantee you I knew about Bitcoin before you did. And that's not a brag or a flex. It's just the facts. I first learned about Bitcoin right about the time, famously somebody figured out how to have a pizza delivered to their house with Bitcoin. It's about the time I found out about it. I almost bought some Bitcoin, although my motivation was to use it to play internet poker, and Bitcoin was at 35, and I don't mean 3,500. I don't mean 35,000. $35 a Bitcoin, and that's the highest it had ever been. It was at its all-time high of $35, and just go look at the price chart for Bitcoin. How long has it been since it was at 30? When was the last time it was at $35? And did you know what the fuck Bitcoin was at that time? And 80+% of the population would say no, I'd never heard of it, or didn't know what the fuck it was. Had started to hear about it, but didn't understand what it was. Exactly. I knew exactly what it was before that. All right, looks like we're about to pass the plow here. Although we are coming up on a parking area, which is probably cool, but I do need to take a leak here pretty soon. I guess I'll just pull over. It'd be kind of rude to pass the plow and then fucking pull over to take a pee break. All right, BRB. Yeah. But yeah, especially a younger person that thinks they're going to come troll my chat. It's like, yo, man, I knew about internet trolling before you were born, like literally before you were born, and maybe before your parents not were born, but before your parents understood what the internet was. I knew what internet trolling was. I used to try to tell people about podcasts, and then realize at a certain point nobody knew what a podcast was, and I mean nobody knew what a podcast was, and I finally just started calling it internet radio because I knew if I said podcast, I would then be left to explain what a podcast is. And really the only thing you can say at that point is it's internet radio, because back then it was almost exclusively audio in the olden days. I fucking manually typed in my own fucking coding for an RSS feed in 2010 or 2011 to have my first podcast. Clickety, clickety, clickety. Bracket, or whatever that, I forget the, that one particular shape of bracket, whatever that's called. Forget, RSS with the brackets around it. And then whatever coding needs to happen, and before you can get to the bracket / RSS bracket to tell the file that that's the end of the code. And I ain't no programmer. I had my own web page where I manually typed out the fucking HTML code in 1995. Because why? Because I found it interesting, and it was my hobby. That's what I wanted to do. In 1995, when I was, I don't know, 21 or 22, when I wasn't too busy letting the girls that were chasing me catch me. But yeah, it's just funny the thought of somebody who, for fun, goes around the internet and then they run into somebody like me. So, and then let's talk about oh shit, is that a what am I looking at on the other side of the road? Oh, that's the other rest area. Never mind. And shit, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah, message boards. So it reminds me of, I don't know what year that would have been. I know I was on offtopic.com going back to like late 2001, and that was a huge, very active message board. And I was on there for about 10 years and chose to leave and never went back, but just barely missed OG status. OG was, um, it was like '01, early '01 or earlier registration. Your register, the date you first registered your username. Riding old Benton to the promised land, are you? Go ride old Benton to the promised land? Day cabber? Local day cabber gonna ride old Benton to the promised land, huh? It's interesting. But I spent a great deal of my time having so-called debates on offtopic.com around 9/11, Building 7. I got very, 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 very skilled at debating so-called 9/11 truth. And I mean, very good at it. And at times it would be me versus up to, I don't know, 4 or 5 other people, with my 85 words a minute, multi-quoting multiple people, right? Slicing and dicing their weak ass fucking arguments. That was a lot of fun. And what do we have now in 2026? Pretty much everybody that was debating me in, I don't know, 2005 on offtopic.com, because the normie view is it's pretty much accepted the idea that that was an inside job and all of that. Some people will still push back and say it was. And actually now it's sort of a way to be kind of a contrarian cool kid, is to say, well, no, it wasn't an inside job. Like, that's actually now the minority view, right? It's sort of come, not quite full circle, but see what I mean? It's come around to that. 9/11 truth. And so I'm so far fucking ahead of the game. Yeah, it probably does seem like retardation. I understand. Um, and what does it say about a being who comes into contact with such high level ideas compared to their own level of thinking that their reaction is, well, you are retarded? Well, yes, you're right. However, I'm not sure what that has to do with the present discussion. But you're not wrong, depending on the context. That's a bit of a non sequitur in this context, sir. But also, thank you for reminding me to turn the chat off, because I don't remember to turn the chat off. And as long as it's proper comments coming in, well, why would I remember to turn the chat off? See, he's brought unto my remembrance. Oh, that's right, sir. We turn the chat off around here. So thank you for reminding me. Much appreciated. And so Benton is the being who, again, with the yin form of the yin and the yang, just accepts that, yeah, the same people that were treating me like I was an object of mockery and ridicule in 2005 for talking about certain true facts, or, official fiction true facts about 9/11. Those same people, have been baby truthers for 4 to 5 years now. Truther 101 baby truthers. And that's the same person who, I might run into them at the checkout at the Walmart, and next thing you know, they're going through their whole Truther 101 spiel. Same fucking people. Right. And so if from that person's perspective, I'm retarded because they've just now figured out certain entertaining forms of internet trolling, I don't know what to tell you. As a person who picked up an analog push button phone, figured out how to get the Unix system administrator on the horn and said, hey man, how about you make me a Unix shell account and you make me an email address? And then a couple of years later, as my friends and family started to be assigned email addresses, and it wasn't too much longer after that the University of Arkansas, at orientation, all the incoming freshmen got assigned an email address by default. They didn't even have a naming convention for email addresses. My email address was my last name at myuniversity.edu, because there wasn't enough email accounts on the fucking server to even worry about it. It's just like, oh, well, we'll just make it his last name. I wish I'd had a way to hang on to that account, but somehow I lost it. I had two at a certain point. I had that one, and then I had the one that they just automatically assigned to me at a certain point. I'm not sure how I ever lost it. Or what happened. It's been a long time. More day cabbers trying to tuck on in behind Benton. Let's follow the blind. Let's find the person who's flying the blindest, and let's follow him. Let's do that. Great plan. He's got a light out on the back of his trailer too. One of his two trailers. So when my friends and family started getting email addresses, after like the 20th time of somebody sending me one of those chain email bullshit things, I finally just had to email all my friends and family and say, listen, Do not ever forward me this stuff because 100% of what you're for, and or it was either a chain email or just like, oh, here's some email jokes, right? Here's some interesting information in a digestible form. I said, every single thing that you think is amusing and you want to share with me, I've seen it. And I don't mean 9 out of 10. I mean 100% of everything y'all are seeing me, I've already seen it. And getting in 2026 on the internet, it's still a version of that. I've seen all of this for the most part. Nobody is bringing anything new to me with respect to the internet, with some exceptions. Not really. Not really. If y'all remember Napster and then Kazaa and LimeWire and all that bullshit, well, I was already illegally downloading from Usenet, aka News Group. I was already pirating software and movies and music before Napster. So whatever these people have done and are doing on the internet, I was doing an earlier version of it before them. And in a lot of cases, if they're younger, before they were born, which in some ways only makes me an old fogey, but you're not going to meet another 50-year-old. You're very unlikely to meet another 50-year-old that can say all of that. Especially not one who sounds like me and you know, came up like I came up. When I first started accessing the World Wide Web, there was not yet a graphical web browser. It was all text, and you could type in a command and download a JPEG or a GIF. And of course, the great debate was raging about, is it GIF or GIF? I don't mean animated GIF or GIF. I'm talking about just a regular, just an image file. Because a JPEG hadn't quite taken over as the preferred format yet. I was there for all of it. I was in an airport traveling for work, and I had downloaded episodes of some TV show, or maybe I ripped some DVDs. I'm not exactly sure, but this was before the days of laptops having DVD players. And I figured out how to, because I had a CD burner, $300, by the way, for a cheap CD burner. It's a Rico, as I recall, external. Well, no, that wasn't internal now that I think about it. And $300 on sale on Newegg. I bought an internal fucking CD burner in the 90s on Newegg.com. Actually, it was Egghead before they transitioned to Newegg. Egghead.com. Because I was in Vegas for a work trip and didn't have anything to do waiting for my flight, and I hit like $350 on a slot machine and bought a CD burner for 300 something dollars. So I figured out how to master and burn my own video CDs, because you couldn't just throw a DivX or an AVI or whatever on a fucking CD and have it play back then. Oh, no, that wasn't a thing. So I authored my own video CDs and watched people pass by me in the airport and just marvel at how the fuck I was able to watch TV on my laptop from their perspective. Wowie, wowie. And then, how many of them even understood what the fuck I told them? Well, yeah, here's what I did. It's a video CD, but I either ripped it off of a DVD or I probably downloaded it. I don't even know if I probably didn't even have a way to rip a DVD. And I remember, before the fucking DVD copy protection got cracked, like when you couldn't rip a DVD at a certain point. So I think these were video CDs, and video CDs had no copyright protection. Or if they did, it was just laughable, to defeat it. But I'm pretty sure it was no. So I think these were just, I downloaded, disc images of video CDs, probably what it was. Or I made my own, depending. Like that was my hobby, man. That's what I was ate up with that shit for years. I got over a decade of fucking nerding out on computers. Nerding the fuck out. My first overclock was a Pentium 2 266 to 333. I think that was my first ever overclock. Of course, I had eventually I had the dual Celeron 300As running at 450. Of course, I had to rock that at a certain point once it became cheap enough. I wasn't going to spend big bucks on a fucking Celeron, but regular Windows didn't support dual CPUs yet, so I had to run either NT or 2000 server. Or Linux, of course. My buddy was able to get probably a Sears credit card, store card, and got a Packard Bell Pentium 75. And we really wanted to put Linux on it, but neither one of us could figure out how to install it. It was quite an arduous multi-step process back then. So we found a bigger nerd and paid him to come over. Paid him like $20 to come over, put Linux on it for us. I wasted many hours attempting to compile my own IRC client to enable certain, turn certain flags on to enable certain functionality, but I never could get it to run. Never could get it to properly compile. I think eventually I just like downloaded an executable somewhere and couldn't really ever get that to run properly on the old university Unix server. Just, stuff like that. Of course, that was well before the days of MIRC. Again, we're talking fully text based, and I don't mean BBSs. I've never used a bulletin board service. I've never used AOL. I've never used CompuServe. I'm talking about the motherfucking unadulterated internet from early '94. Not a BBS, not AOL, not CompuServe. The motherfucking raw dog internet directly into old Benton's veins. Give me the shot. Went through a full blown internet addiction by the late '90s, early 2000s. Came out the other end of that. That was a bit of a problem there for a while, I must say. A little bit. I haven't even bothered to look at where I'm delivering yet. That could be fraught with peril. I guess I don't have to worry about that for a little over 2 more hours. Maybe random bozos will try to seize control of what I'm doing. Oh, and something else I like to talk about with humanity that happened to me recently is, when people try to intervene on your behalf, but, because they're attempting to be helpful, but really what they're doing is like seizing control of of whatever you're doing. So like I was, moving out of the hotel into the truck. So I had to, whatever that's called, put your baggage on it, roll it around, whatever that cart is. There's got to be some kind of name for that, particular style that hotels typically have. And, I'm all set up to get through the doorway, no problem. And it's some creepy fucking weirdo, man. Because one thing about living in the streets with nothing for so long, also known as a homeless person, I can spot a creep in fucking 2 seconds. And this dude's a creep, man. And I'm going through the double doors, and I look up, and he's grabbed a hold of my cart, and I just stop, because this is number one. This is not a two-man job. Number two, if it is a two-man job, don't we need to like make a plan here? Like, how am I don't. I'm not necessarily going to understand what his plan is. Like, what's he doing? I just politely am like, okay, well, thanks for trying to help, but it's a one-man job or whatever. That's the type of shit that drives me nuts. That doesn't really affect me as much anymore. Just like, what are you doing, bro? I ask people, I go, hey man, do you need some help? Would you like me to get the door? Like, I offer, and I wait to see what they say. I don't just rush over and start doing shit. To me, that's one of the rudest things possible. Now, if they've somehow, detected my royal nature and bearing, it's like, okay, well, why are you late, servant? Because I'll stand over there and push this out to my big rig for me, right? If it's not a one-man job, oh, feel free, sir. Why have you waited until I'm halfway through the fucking doors? I'm past the first door and I'm starting to go out the second door. Like, why are you jumping in now? How come you didn't stop what you were doing when you first saw me and said, "My lord, let me do that for you. I'll take it from here." Okay, you know what to do, right? All right, have at it. I'll just hang out in the fucking lobby, watch my servant, deal with my baggage. Right? Sometimes people spring to action, and I feel like that's part of the attitude. It's almost like, are we really just going to let the king fucking carry his own bags? Well, I mean, apparently we are, and by the way, I mean, the king would rather be left the fuck alone, or feel free to intervene the moment you see the king and say, hey, man, let me get those bags for you. And, you know, yeah, it would be weird, but it would be less weird than I'm lost in my thoughts, negotiating this doorway. And the next thing I know, a complete total stranger is physically grasping onto the cart that I'm also got a hold of. It's just fucking weird, man. I was walking through the truck stop doing my laundry. It was one of those big fancy truck stops, and I had my IKEA plastic shopping bag that I put my clothes in when I fold up my clean clothes, and that's how I carry them back to the truck. The way I was walking past shelves, and this is part of the neurodivergence. This type of shit happens to me all the time. This is a regular occurrence. This is nothing new in my world. And I have such good reflexes. A normal person, if they were carrying an IKEA bag, shopping bag, and the loop handle happened to catch onto a piece of shelving, a hook on a shelf as they walked by, they wouldn't have any idea what had happened. Some of them would pull the whole fucking shelf off the wall before they figured out what happened. And the moment I felt the tension, I knew exactly what had happened. I knew to just immediately stop, let everything settle, let the dust settle, then turn, walk back, release the slack, gently and slowly reach out, unloop it, then turn and go back on my way. Or I can do that within half a second, because whatever human being is in the environment is going to immediately intervene on my behalf. So I already know, because there's a human close enough to intervene, And by the way, why is it some creepy weirdo creeping around? It was not busy. This is a comically huge truck stop with plenty of room for everybody to wander around and browse. Why is there a person right there in the first place while this is happening who's immediately just going to start reaching out and grabbing things because I need help, right? Because Benton's a damsel in distress, apparently. And so I already know that all I can do is slam on the brakes to not rip the fucking shelf off the wall, right? And then he reaches out to start doing things. I just let the bag go and just stand there and watch him. And then he's kind of looking at me all confused. And then he's starting to explain to me the thing that I've already reacted to with my cat-like reflexes. I'm just standing there looking at him like, are you fucking crazy? Like, what are you doing? And then he's basically like, oh, this is what's happened and I'm helping you. And I'm like, well, number one, I know. And number two, this is not helpful to me, but okay, thank you. Oh, he tried to hand it to me. I was like, no, man, just leave it there. I got it. Just leave it there. It's all good. And then I waited for him to leave, and then I retrieved my bag and went on about my day. But see, he thinks he's helping. Like, well, no, and now we've had a bizarre interaction, and number three, it's actually wasted some time. But okay, since that's what the humans need to do. And see, that has nothing to do with me. That's all things happening in him emotionally, right? And the knee-jerk reaction is, oh my God, a human being might be in distress. I'm being observed, and I might lose face in the tribe if I don't help him immediately. Versus, hey, what's the hope happening over there? Oh, look, that fella's hemmed up a little bit. Oh, look, well, he's figured it out and he's extricating himself from the situation. So there's nothing for me to do here. And then going about that's what I would do. And maybe just make some kind of joke about it, maybe. Here's another one. Go follow old Benton. Ride old Benton to the promised land at 55. Yeah, another day cabber pulling doubles. Estes on the line haul. Hey, there's old Benton at 55. He must be the flow of traffic. We just happened to merge onto the interstate right into the ass end of Benton's 55-mile-an-hour trailer in the 65. I guess we'll just ride him to the promised land. Or I'll drop down to 54 and then he'll pass me. And he's going to go 65, which is exactly what he would be doing if the ass end of my trailer had presented itself right when he merged onto the interstate. That's how lost your average person is. That their actions in the real world are dictated almost entirely arbitrarily. Right. And again, what's the big deal? The guy just wanted to help in the truck stop. Well, he inconvenienced me. He didn't help me at all. I didn't want or need his help. And if he had been walking by, saw that I might be might be having some problems, he's free to say, hey, man, you need some help with that? No, I got it. Thanks, brother. All right, man. That's it. What's this springing into action? It's fucking weird, man. And I'll tell you what a lot of it is. A lot of it is men or males that have developed fear patterns based on tending to their women. And their women are trap setters, so they've trained themselves to be on the constant lookout for a situation that they might be expected to spring into action, because if they don't, they're going to get, next time she's mad about something, they're going to get an earful and be shamed and ridiculed and mocked. Right. It's like, yeah, what's that have to do with me? I'm just trying to go fold my clothes up and get the fuck out of here. And if I can do that without talking to anybody, it's better. Leave me alone. Thank you. And I'm sure half of it also is I probably seem incompetent based on my body language, and whatever I happen to be doing is just so bizarre and out of the ordinary. My very countenance is so bizarre and out of the ordinary that, people don't know what to do with it. It's like, yeah, what? Except I'm way more competent. Again, how many people could be walking by there with one of those bags? The fucking handle loops around a hook on a shelf. They immediately understand what's happened, and their reflexes are so sharp that the instant the tension is pulled on the handle, they immediately stop and no damage is done. It's almost imperceptible. Almost imperceptibly. Yeah, I'm slow rolling the fuck out of everybody. I got plenty of time. I don't care how long this takes at this point. I would prefer to get there earlier because, I might be able to figure out where the fuck I am and, actually get kind of parked out of the way somewhere while I wait. But I'm lost interest in whatever this is. And that's another thing about the trucking. At a certain point, you know, between the fuck me money and just the nature of what's happening out here and the further devolving of a society continues to devolve in various ways. And I think I talked about this a little bit yesterday. I could see eventually I just end up parked somewhere, just living in the truck until somebody shows up and is like, "Hey, man, we're here to recover that rig. So pretty please, sugar on top. Could you grab your shit and get the fuck out?" And by then, I'll already be, you know, maintaining a state of readiness. Oh yeah, let me grab my bags, and I'll just leave everything else. So I'll just wander off on foot. I'm starting to think that might be sooner rather than later because I'm pretty sure this is going to be my last trucking job. I mean, I can't say for sure. Hell, I've already quit the thing 3 times, only to still be driving a truck. So who the fuck knows? But now there's still a possibility I might go to the oil field, uh, but I don't even know about that. Maybe because the idea of this level up, the next level up, I'm almost certain it's going to be having to do with fasting is going to be a part of it certainly, but then also you know not working a job for the most part, not handling money for the most part, no taxes, not paying taxes. And at this point, I can't speak for other humans, but you know, it doesn't even seem appropriate to pay taxes at this point. The Epstein files. Yeah, your tax dollars at work. I mean, what are we talking about here? But yeah, back to a point I tried to make over an hour ago and didn't quite get there. That I think some of the younger folks are starting to see that there are actually like highly skilled politicians like the Clintons. And apparently now a bunch of folks are kind of going goo goo gaga over Hillary apparently giving some of these MAGA bozos the business in the Senate hearings. It's like, yeah, you really want to go right at Hillary Clinton because you think you caught her in a gotcha because of whatever Bill's been up to? Good luck. You really want to go toe to toe with that barracuda? Have at it. I don't like your chances. Oh, Hillary's a bad bitch when it comes to that sort of thing. If a fella's got any sense, or a lady, you take one look at that broad and leave her the fuck alone. Leave her be. Then old Bill just charms them. There's people in the comments saying, probably younger folks or bots, whatever, but talking about that Bill came off personable and likable or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, don't you understand what a fucking he's at almost a 10 out of 10. His skills as a politician is almost a 10 out of 10. That's what do you think he does? He makes you feel some type of way. That's his genius, among other things. If you want to just go ability, that's probably the greatest politician of our lifetime, Bill motherfucking Clinton. Probably is. I'm not talking about policy. I'm not talking about left versus right. I'm just saying, give that man a mission politically, and watch him go to work at the dirty business of politics. And for the people who think America is something akin to what we've been told that it is, uh, which it never was. It certainly isn't now. But the only thing to do with these politicians is to just get rid of all of them, and I mean all of them. Clean house, quit paying taxes. And the moment the person says, "Well, how do we do this and how do we do that?" It's like, why are you asking me? What do you mean how? I'm telling you what will give the power to the people. The only way for the masses of people to have power over this government is stop funding the government. That's it. Nothing else will do anything to benefit the mass of people. Voting won't do anything. Protesting won't do anything. Nothing will do anything other than stop paying taxes. They say, well, what do you mean? I'm on a W-2. They take it out of my check Well, I guess you've got to stop going to your job then. Oh, well, how do I do this and how do I do that? I don't know. That's your problem. And then they say, well, uh, but I have to do this and I have to do that. Then I guess you are a slave, and I guess you're going to continue to pay for the Epstein files, and you're going to continue to put money into the pockets of the people who supposedly are engaged in these activities. Now, whether or not those activities are even happening in the first place, I have no fucking idea. But, you know, imagine believing that all of this is happening and then doing nothing whatsoever about it. Just saying, well, that's, and accepting it and supporting it and paying for it, right? That's what it is to be an American, is to pay for all of these things. And as far as the whatever's going on in the Middle East, uh, now it's always multi-layered and multifaceted, but a big part of it is you're not going to have a significant rise in economic activity without uh, oil's got to go up significantly from where it is. I think it's up a little bit to $71 a barrel or whatever. I don't keep up with this day in, day out. I could probably have guessed fairly close. I probably would have guessed about 65, but 50 be too low. But when the economy heats up, and what is the economy in this context? Really, we're talking about consumer spending. We're talking about whether it's goods being produced in the U.S. or, forget about the tariffs, forget about where are the goods manufactured. It's the American consumer transacting money in U.S. dollars primarily, and that money going into businesses and corporations and all of these things. That's specifically what we're talking about here. And with the ways in which the money is dispersed, right? And with interest rates and expansion of money supply and, whatever the government's doing around, combating fraud and, paying well over $1 trillion for two, now going on 3 consecutive fiscal years of more than $1 trillion in interest on the national debt. So recognize that a lot of what is going on at the federal level monetarily, especially since Trump began his second term, a lot of what's going on is tied up in making sure that the bankers get, and it's not only bankers that get that money, but it's primarily banks, financial institutions, sovereign wealth funds, and all these various, so-called elite level things, right? Or whatever you want to call it. And bankers, that book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Kiyosaki, and it doesn't matter that Kiyosaki's debunkable. There's a reason why that book was pushed out into the zeitgeist. And this is the only, I've read it. Now, here's the only thing you need to know from that book. Rich people born into wealth, actual rich people, or the so-called rich dad in the example of the book, always pay themselves first regardless of what money do they owe to other people for what purpose. When income flows into their hands, they set aside a portion of that money for themselves before they do anything else. And so the people who are owed the interest on the national debt are those people. So they, in order for this level of credit and expansion of money supply to continue, they have to be assured that they're going to get their 1+ trillion this fiscal year, or else they won't do anything. They'll sit on their hands and stay home and say, let us know when you're ready to when you're ready to assure us that we're going to get paid what we're owed. Until then, we're not doing a damn thing. So all this Doge and this idea, now you got Musk and Doge in there trying to deal with the Social Security and all of that. All of that was making sure the funds were going to be available to pay the interest on the national debt. That's it. That was it, and that was all. So that's the main framework for what's happening. And so the idea of stimulating the so-called consumer side of the economy, well, start bombing the Middle East and understand that if certain countries are attacked and invaded, if certain sites are bombed, that it virtually guarantees that a waterway or a canal will be closed, and that will almost guarantee oil at $100 or $120 a barrel as long as that situation continues long enough. Now, am I saying that's what's causing the bombing? I'm not saying that. I'm saying that's a big reason why it's happening now. It's not the only reason. It's one of the big reasons why. Well, now I found a weirdo actually who likes a good slow driving contest. And no matter how slow I go, they're going even slower. So now it's 40 with the flashers on, and they're still slowing down up there. So they're actually matching my speed from in front of me, which is always a fascinating phenomenon. So I'm going 40 with the flashers on, and they're up there going about 40, slow rolling the fuck out of me. I don't know what they get out of it, though. They're a four-wheeler. I don't really understand their purpose. Very strange. Especially in this part of the country. They're still not entirely pulling away from me. The distance has increased, but they're still up there. I think I can probably speed up to 45 now without catching them. Maybe they're taking the slow down, poor driving condition signs a little too seriously, but there's nothing wrong with the road. We're still above freezing. And so, much like my research indicates, and again, do your own research, that during the 08-09 global financial crisis, that during the so-called credit freeze, when the banks weren't willing to do business with each other until they all got injections of liquidity from both the taxpayers and the Federal Reserve, so that they could, again, they're always going to pay themselves first. So the banker will just sit on their hands and not do deals. They have to be certain that they're going to get paid. See, if they can't be certain they're going to be paid, now some will say, well, what do you mean? What about these high interest loans? Exactly. That's why it's 25%. That pays for the people who stiff them. The 25% interest ensures that they're going to get paid. That's the whole point. It doesn't matter that that accounts for some portion of the people are never going to pay the money back. You're making my point. Oh man. So same thing here. You've got it. You have people who are qualified and experienced in, say, the North Dakota oil fields, and at $60 a barrel oil, they're not in the oil field. And there are some people in the oil fields, mainly because they probably just don't have a good enough reason to go back to wherever they're from to do Uber, to do gig apps and maybe work in a warehouse, right? Or, it ain't quite, it's depending on where they're from in the U.S., it's not quite, lawn care season yet or time to do landscaping or whatever business they might be doing. There's a whole bunch of motherfuckers who will go out to the oil field when oil's $100 or 120 a barrel, and then the production will ramp way up, and that will be hundreds of millions of dollars will get injected into the economy. That's all that most of that money is going to get spent into the economy in the short term. Yeah, some of it will be saved, some of it will be invested, sure, but the majority of it's going to get thrown into the larger economy. Much like what kept the economy from just entirely stopping, based on my research, is that you know black market proceeds from illicit drug sales is absolutely allowed to flow into large banks. The government knows about it, the large banks know about it, everybody knows about it. And so in the short run, my research, do your own, indicates that that large amount of cash that continued to flow into banks from the illicit drug trade during that time is the only thing that fully kept the economy from grinding to a total halt. And so, this is probably a version of that. It's like, hey, man, you see what's happening with the jobs, you see what's happening with the tightening of the belts and the spending, well, $100 a barrel of oil for a barrel of oil will absolutely 100% of the time cause a great deal of money to be earned and then injected into the economy. It's no other way. It is cause and effect. Now, I'm not saying that's the reason for the bombing, because there's always going to be lots of reasons, but it's one of the major reasons. That is economic stimulus. Blowing shit up in the Middle East does stimulate the economy here, like it or not. It's just what it does under the present, the way things operate at present. And I kind of laugh at the truckers because, it's been all this months now of, oh, the rates are going to recover and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and the fuel's about to go up. And it's probably going to just completely negate the rates going up. Remember when diesel was $5 a gallon? Well, probably about, or five or more dollars a gallon. It's probably about to do that. Probably about to be that yet again. Anyway, I guess I'm out. Bye.